In reality, things happen simultaneously. In role-playing games, we serialize events, focusing on one event after the other. That means there is usually one person describing what happens in the game world at any given time. When that one person describes the event that is currently happening in the game, we say that they have the spotlight. Imagine the spotlight as the camera when filming a movie. If the camera is not directed at something, we cannot see it. The GM has a great influence on where the spotlight is pointed. We can easily shift the spotlight to ourselves by starting to narrate an occurrence in the game, or we can shift it to anyone else at the table by asking what their character is doing. Players can direct the spotlight as well. A player that starts a dramatic statement places themselves in the spotlight. Two players role-playing an angry discussion are in the spotlight. A player that interjects in the middle of another player's action is taking the spotlight away from the first player. Now that we understand what the spotlight is, let's talk about some potential issues that may arise around it and learn about tools you can use to address those issues. Tool 1. Going into initiative. It's a big challenge for game masters to make sure that everyone gets to have their moment in the limelight. Sometimes it's easy. When we get into combat in a D&D game, we use initiative to determine the turn order. Each character is guaranteed to have a moment in the spotlight at least once per round, and no one can steal someone else's time. Is that true? Not always. Some players take their time describing in detail what their character does on their turn, while others, usually the more timid ones, will simply roll the dice, declare the results, and pass on their turn. It is important to pay attention so you can make sure that everyone gets their time to play. If one player cuts off another player mid-sentence, make sure to re-establish the order and let the first player finish their turn. If someone is reluctant to take the spotlight, encourage them to describe in more detail what their character is doing. Initiative can also be a great tool for controlling the spotlight outside of combat. If your party is in a complex scene where everyone is doing something all at about the same time, you can go into initiative to make sure you get input from all of your players and to make them feel that every action is important. It can also be used to organize the chaos around you if you have a table full of players who all talk at once. So, to summarize, initiative isn't only for combat. Tool number 2. Asking direct questions. Remember that even when you are not in initiative order, everyone should still get their time in the spotlight. It is common that the more charismatic players talk during the game while shy players get left behind. Often, this is not any player's fault. The more confident players will simply play more confidently, while the shy players will inevitably shy away. If we want to give those shy players a moment in the spotlight, one of the options is to address them directly with questions about their character's thoughts or reactions to an event. In cinema, this is called a reaction shot, a shot of someone reacting to an event that takes place. Let's assume that the bard and the king are having an angry discussion. The game master notices that the player playing the cleric is being left out. So, the game master interjects by addressing the cleric's player and asking, "And what does your character think about the bard's plan?" In this way, we redirect the spotlight. The cleric's player adds their character's point of view and contributes to the scene. Tool number 3. Sharing the spotlight. When we ask our players questions, it is an out-of-character method of redirecting the spotlight. But we can also redirect the spotlight in character, using NPCs in the scene. If the bard character is having a lengthy discussion with a bartender about the origin of dragons, and we notice that the cleric's player hasn't had any real time in the spotlight during the session, we can always speak up as the NPC bartender. "Hey cleric, settle that discussion I'm having with this gentleman. What's the church's stand on dragons?" In doing so, we basically invite the cleric's player to share the spotlight in this scene. Using these tools, we, the game masters, can redirect the spotlight to where we feel it will best serve the game. It is important to note, though, that players have control over the spotlight as well. They can address each other with direct questions, invite each other to share the spotlight, or switch initiative order if the game mechanics allows it. Don't treat these actions as an infringement on your GM role of controlling the spotlight. This is a normal part of the game and adds to the fun. As an exercise to develop an awareness of the spotlight, try in your next game to pay attention to who speaks and who stay silent every time that the party makes a plan or interacts with an NPC. You can also watch an episode of an actual play series like Critical Role or Dimension 20 and practice paying attention to who hogs the spotlight, who doesn't get their time in the spotlight, and who invites others to share the spotlight. Try to think what the GM could have done differently to balance the player's time in the spotlight. Noticing who does or doesn't get their time in the spotlight is an important skill. It will help you make sure everyone is taking part in the game and to reflect on whether you have planned a worthy challenge for each character. I hope this lesson helped you to understand what the spotlight is and how to use it to improve your future games. See you in the next lesson.